Hello again, folks, and welcome back to TCA Talk, the official podcast of the Tennessee Cattlemen Association. I'm Greg Thompson, and I'm thrilled to bring you our next guest, and that is Dr. Samantha Beaty. She is the state veterinarian for the state of Tennessee. Dr. Beaty, welcome to TCA Talk. Excited to talk to you, and you're going to be at the TCA Convention here in February. Talk to us about what's going on.
Well, thanks so much for having me today, and thanks for the opportunity to get to share a little bit about the upcoming Cattlemen's Association meeting. Yeah, so we're preparing for a busy spring and winter, and just looking forward to the opportunity to be able to attend the meeting.
Well, Dr. Beaty, we are all excited to see your presentation on February 7th. Before we get to that and talk a little bit more about the upcoming convention, I want to roll things back a little bit, and I'd like to start by taking people through your background. For instance, how long have you been the state veterinarian and assistant commissioner for animal health in Tennessee? Can you take a moment and walk us through your career?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Fentress County, Tennessee, and attended the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine. I did an undergraduate at Tennessee Tech and ended up doing some mixed animal practice. Then in 2016, started working for the state of Tennessee, the Department of Agriculture. And in 2019, was appointed as the state veterinarian. So been in the role longer than I had thought there for a minute. Gosh, that is almost 7 years. So, yeah.
Wow. So what got you interested in wanting to be a veterinarian just right off the jump?
I was one of those people who grew up always intending to be a veterinarian. I knew that's what I wanted to do. My third grade teacher still remembers me saying that's what I was going to do. My grandparents had a small farm, and my family had a menagerie of different animals, horses, cows, different times.
So you really enjoyed taking care of them and kind of felt a calling from that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So these days, can you talk to us about what a typical week looks like for you and what you're doing in your current position?
So a typical week for me, I'm in the office most days unless I'm out maybe meeting with producers or with different industry partners. Overall, in animal health, we do a lot of different things. We help manage animal rules and regulations, which typically is answering questions for folks that call in. We would do movement regulations for animals coming into the state, helping manage program disease certifications, so like brucellosis freedom, TB freedom. We also do things like manage data, so our field staff, you'll see them out at sale barns and livestock markets and meeting with different people. They will be collecting information that we help gather to make sure that we are able to prove that our animals are healthy so we can stay in commerce.
So for our audience, I want to talk about what your office does in terms of working with beef producers. Can you kind of give us the lay of the land with that?
Sure. So our mission is really to keep livestock and animal products in commerce. So we do that by trying to assess and manage diseases that are important to the economy. One of the things that I give an example of an incident of BSE that we had a couple of years ago where we found out that an animal had gone through slaughter and had originated in Tennessee. And in order for us not to have any sort of movement restrictions from other countries, we had to go find the birth cohorts of that animal and quarantine them or assess them if they were still alive to see if they had any indication of being ill. And we're able to successfully do that, have some great field staff that really jumped in and helped pull all that together. And so we were able to take that back to our partners at the World Organization for Animal Health and USDA and prove, hey, we've managed to track all of this down, and so the beef supply out of Tennessee is safe. That's one thing that we do, but it gives you an idea of like what it is, our goal is, what our mission is, and how we try to support disease freedom and movement in commerce.
So Dr. Beaty, you just brought up a great point that I didn't think about prior to our interview. And that is that you've got a team of people out there. Talk to us about the size of your staff. where you're deployed. I know you're based in Nashville, but you've got folks all over the state. How do you guys work in the field?
So we have around 15 people in the field. So we have 3 veterinarians, and the other 12 are animal health technicians. And they're day to day, they're out interacting with producers in the community. They may go to a farm and test chickens, or they may be going to an extension office to talk about a program. On rare occasion, we'll have an issue where we'll have an animal who has a suspect test result, and we'll have to go out and have somebody examine that animal or potentially retest it, maybe quarantine it. Typically, an animal health technician will have 5 to 6 counties that they're assigned. So they may get a call about livestock abuse, and they will go out and inspect that complaint in that county. So we have a pretty robust field staff, and we're very fortunate because that's important when we have an emergency disease response and it's kind of all hands on deck. High-path avian influenza that's been in the news lately is something that we deployed to handle, and so we need people in the field who are able to do that type of work.
In talking to you prior to the interview, I learned that you and your husband are cattle producers. And if you would, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your cattle operation. And I'm curious to know how your experience as a fellow cattle producer helps you in your role with the state.
Yeah, so I live in Robertson County with my husband and daughter, and we have a commercial cow-calf operation. I have a couple of pet cows. Not a good business move, but yeah, got a couple pets. So we have about 50 head of mama cows. And how does that help me? Well, I think my perspective is not clinical. My perspective is from the side of the producer. The decisions that I make are driven by what is best for commerce, for what is best for the animal herd, and I say Tennessee's herd, and trying to make sure that everybody's able to continue to move animals and to be their most profitable.
Well, Dr. Beaty, as a fellow producer and the state veterinarian, can you give us a few tips on best approaches to keep your herd healthy? What are some of the biggest threats to cattle these days, and what can producers do to maintain the health of our herds?
Yeah, so I think that people have different approaches to this and different philosophies, but for my husband and I, we background cattle. So for us, that means that as animals are moving from this stage of production to the feeder stage of production, we try to prepare them for the best immunity, the best growth. And so that means getting vaccines for respiratory diseases and other things, being dewormed, them learning how to eat before they are sent to a feed operation, not just be directly weaned, castration, those types of typical management practices that kind of help ensure a healthy animal. It's important to us because it's a welfare issue. If animals are sick a lot, they don't have a good quality of life. But also, the healthier the animal is, the better the product. So an animal whose immune system's been really compromised, they've been sick a lot, the product that you have is not going to be as good as it would be from an animal who's had lifelong health and good immunity.
In terms of daily maintenance and care and the overall health of your herd, the health of the animals, is it the small things that add up to the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think so. I think that attention to detail is important. And so the extras, making sure that they're supplemented correctly, making sure that they're getting adequate nutrition through whatever they're eating, whether that's forage or feed or both. I think those are all critical.
Well, Dr. Beaty, the screwworm has been in the news over the past several months. And as we record this in the third week of January, what's the latest on the screwworm? And I'd also like to ask you, if the screwworm does happen to advance north, can you talk about how Tennessee is prepared to deal with this?
Sure. Screwworm is obviously a pest that feeds on living tissue. We haven't had it in the United States in a long time, unless you count the one-off cases like in the Florida Keys. Most recently, there have been some detections closer to the United States and Mexico, so I think over the weekend there was a detection in Tamaulipas, and it was about 215 miles from the U.S. border. This particular pest tends to cause a lot of economic devastation, and there are lots of papers and studies about what impact it would have on just the state of Texas or on the U.S. as a whole if you go to USDA's website on New World Screwworm. But as far as preparedness goes, we do have a draft of kind of an emergency plan if the screwworm actually comes into the United States. So if it were to come into Texas, we would be prepared to do some movement controls on animals coming out of that area. If we actually had the screwworm get as far north as Tennessee, then we would transition into the New World Screwworm Plan that USDA has. We operate in a cooperative agreement with them, and they have an overarching plan that we use in a unified response, so it's similar to what other states would be doing. We would set up a control zone around an infested premises. We would try to treat the animals who are affected, and then we would set up sterile insect technique. Basically, sterile flies are released, so the sterile flies reproduce with the fertile flies, and so they don't have viable offspring. And that would help slow down the movement of the pest northward. So that's a very high-level summary of how that works, but I anticipate that if we were to get the pest, much like we would do to anybody else, there would be movement restrictions against us, and so it's really important that people are vigilant, making sure that they're doing fly control, that sort of thing. I think right now, as cold as it is, the fly is not very active below 40 degrees or so we're okay, but I think as it warms up, then we're going to be in a different situation.
Well, it sounds like it's something that you're going to be continually monitoring and then sharing information as it becomes available.
Yes, sir.
Talking about sharing information, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming TCA Convention, which takes place February 6th and 7th at the Williamson County Ag Center in Franklin. You will be addressing the convention on Saturday afternoon. What can folks attending the TCA Convention expect from your presentation? And I'm not asking you to give it all away because we want people to come to the convention and hear you speak, but give us a little preview if you would.
Well, I hope to talk a little bit about what it is that the state veterinarian and the Division of Animal Health do. I think that it is somewhat of a mystery, and people don't realize that we're actually trying to promote commerce and not trying to get in the way of moving animals or anybody doing what they need to do in order to be profitable and successful. So hopefully it will give people some insight as to how we manage disease, how we help promote commerce, how we interact on a daily basis with producers.
Well, I would think, too, that if during this and in your interactions with people on the floor at the convention, if they see and hear that you are a fellow producer and you're bringing that perspective into this, that's going to help, at least it would for me, to know that, hey, this is a person who's leading a team who understands what we do.
Well, I hope that that's the take home for people because, again, I think people have somewhat of a clinical picture of what happens in this office when in reality we're trying to do things to promote the industry and promote Tennessee's herd or brand and make animal agriculture successful.
Well, as you said, a healthy animal provides a healthy product on the shelves in the stores and on the plates at home.
Yes, sir.
Well, Dr. Beaty, tell me a little bit about what you like most about the TCA Convention. While you're interacting with the attendees, what are some of their most frequently asked questions?
Yeah, I think my favorite part of the convention is just having the opportunity to interact with other producers and talk about current topics. I think the most commonly asked questions would be related to what's happening in animal health right now. So I'll get questions about New World Screwworm, I'm sure. And in the past, maybe would have gotten questions about high-path avian influenza in dairy cattle. So it's kind of the topic of the moment that comes up the most.
Well, Dr. Beaty, to follow up on that, when you're on the floor at the convention, you're talking to folks, what are you learning from them? And is there an example of something, maybe an interaction that you had with them at a previous event like the convention, where you're able to take it back and put it into practice in your office or across the state?
Well, I think the most valuable things that I learn is I find out what's most important to them. It helps keep me connected to what I'm doing and to direct my work such that I'm addressing their problems. And something that I've learned from an attendee at a previous TCA event, typically a lot of what I learn comes from other lectures and talks and hearing how people have put those things into practical application. So Temple Grandin talking about animal movement and management and handling and how effectively that has worked for people if they've put that into use on their farms and if it's been successful or not. I know we talk a lot about chute placement and shadows and moving animals in a way where they're less stressed. And so I think I always take something home away from those, although I can't specifically pull up any one thing. I would say that that's some of the stuff that I have really learned what's been helpful to other people and been able to apply that back at our house.
Well, I was going to say that for you attending the convention, you're wearing two hats. You're the state veterinarian, so you're sharing information there. You're getting feedback there. But you're also a cattle producer, so you're trying to learn and advance what you're doing in your operation. So pretty unique opportunity for you.
Yeah, and I really enjoy the trade show. It gives me a chance to see some new things out on the market and just talk to different folks about what products are doing and what they bring to the market.
So Dr. Beaty, as we wrap things up, and I've really enjoyed spending time with you here, I want to ask you about looking out at the next 6 months. What should be at the top of the list for cattle producers as we look to maintain the health of the herds? And also, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I think top of mind is still New World screwworm, and while I think the risk is low in this moment, that we will face some challenges in the future. And so being vigilant, practicing good fly control, checking animals twice a day, dipping umbilical cords in babies, those are all the kinds of things that it's going to take to keep that pest under control. And I think we're in a good spot right now in the cattle industry, but something like New World screwworm could definitely devastate us. And so just being vigilant, being on top of things, being plugged in, paying attention to where the fly is moving and taking care of our own animals is really important.
Well, again, really enjoyed spending time with you. I feel much smarter right now, and I know that what you shared here was very helpful. And looking forward to seeing you in person at the Tennessee Cattlemen's Association's annual convention, February 6th and 7th. I know you're speaking on the 7th. Looking forward to that. And again, just thank you for the time.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.